Firecracker 400 moves along. Dale Earnhardt still the leader in car number 3, but Tim Richmond and Jeff Bodine have moved up behind him in car numbers 25 and 5, respectively. Bodine, you remember, the Daytona 500 winner just a few months ago, but look at Tim Richmond sliding by Dale Earnhardt with relative ease to claim the lead.
Incidentally, we have word that Ron Bouchard, who just a few laps back hit the wall so violently, is okay. That's good news. Bouchard is okay.
This triple play having moved away from the field. Richmond, Earnhardt, Bodine, and Buddy Baker in 4th has pulled away from the pack and is trying to catch up with these speedy 3. You know, Sam, we're watching 3 cars, 3 drivers, very successful on super speedways as Bodine moves down low, Earnhardt staying up high.
Bodine and Earnhardt side by side down the back straight, in every way recreating the duel that they had here in the Daytona 500 earlier this year in February. That duel resolved when Dale Earnhardt, who's riding high here up next to the wall above Bodine, ran out of fuel and Bodine took the win.
As a result of Bodine breaking that 2-car draft, Richmond was able to pull slightly ahead of those 2. Now Bodine drops back in. Of the 5 wins that Richmond has in his career, 4 have come on the super speedways. But we were first exposed to him with Indy cars back in 1980. After that, Richmond decided to break away from IndyCar racing and move to the Grand National scene, where he has had relative success. We asked Tim Richmond if he regretted, ever felt bad that he stepped away from IndyCar racing and moved to race against the good old boys.
I've always regretted not really whipping them guys in the IndyCar ranks. You know, I really wanted to beat them and beat them good, like I do here and like any other race car driver would want to do. But I left there prior to really, you know, making a big mark in IndyCar racing, and I'm sorry about that, but I'm not sorry about coming here to the Winston Cup Series. This is where my style, my desire as a race car driver, I think, lies more than any other form of racing because of the close, in-tight length of the race.
All 3 of the top 3 drivers right now are in their 30s, as we have so many elder statesmen also in the field. And Dale Earnhardt reclaims the lead, pushing number 25 Richmond back into 2nd and Jeff Bodine back into 3rd. Bodine, by the way, in returning to Daytona following his Daytona 500 victory, was finally given his beautiful gold championship ring, which he showed to Sam Posey and I so proudly yesterday. No one able to hold on to the lead for very long in Daytona today. It is Earnhardt, Richmond, Bodine, Baker, and Marlin. Same in the 28th edition of the Firecracker 400. Dale Earnhardt still the leader, but here is Jeff Bodine in car number 5, taking 2nd place away from car number 25, Tim Richmond. Bill Elliott now on pit road. He started in the front row with Cale Yarborough. Looks as though under green.
Yeah, he hates to make that stop under the green, but I think he's okay.
Now look at Bodine catch up on Dale Earnhardt and passing him with ease. Jeff Bodine now the leader. Earnhardt, car number 3, dropping to 2nd. Tim Richmond still holding 3rd, and Buddy Baker not too far behind.
Bodine, incidentally, relatively small physically. He's 5'9", weighs about 155 pounds. He brought power steering into the world of NASCAR racing to make the cars a little bit easier to steer, and he also brought cool suits and cool hats to keep the drivers cooler. He's not a sissy by any means. He just knows he's smaller than most of the other guys and wants to be able to get through the race in good shape. Here's Richard Petty, who's a couple of laps back. He's having a little trouble with one of the cylinders of his engine. You see him wearing that towel there in his mouth. That's a damp cloth, and it keeps his lips moist. Funny that he doesn't wear gloves, don't you think, Al? I mean, given the risk of fire, I know it's smaller than it used to be before the fuel cells came along, but boy, if it was me, I'd have my gloves on.
Meanwhile, Buddy Baker is right there. It's now a 4-car battle, but look at Jeff Bodine. Now maybe 5 car lengths in front of Dale Earnhardt. But in the backstretch, Earnhardt closes that gap a little bit, pulling away from Tim Richmond.
Incidentally, the cars of both Richmond and Bodine are owned by Rick Hendrick, a young man in his late 30s, an entrepreneur who's making racing quite an exciting business these days, mixing it with car dealerships, much in the tradition of Roger Penske, the IndyCar owner.
some dark clouds right now, mixed with sunshine as you see them baking the asphalt. Right now it is Jeff Bodine, Dale Earnhardt, Tim Richmond, and Buddy Baker. The yellow flag has just come out. Caution at Daytona. We had a chance to ask leader Jeff Bodine about Liberty Weekend, and that brought out a very special story about him and his father.
Well, I'm very patriotic. I love this country. Luckily, I guess, haven't had to fight for this country, fight for our freedom, but my father did. He got wounded in World War II, but he survived, and I'm very thankful for that. And he was looking through, I think it was Reader's Digest. They're showing some pictures of soldiers coming into the port with a statue behind him. He picked himself out of that photo. And I think that maybe means something. It meant something to me.
Neat story. Meanwhile, under yellow, it looks like feeding time as pit road becomes a zoo. That should change the leaderboard in Daytona. 1000 at the Daytona International Speedway. Watching quite a battle between Jeff Bodine, Buddy Baker, and Dale Earnhardt. 1, 2, 3. Sterling Marlin moving all the way up from 21st spot. The fastest qualifier right behind them. And look at Buddy Baker. Moving by, or trying to move by, Jeff Bodine. And now a tightly packed bunch down the back straight.
I thought it was going to be 3 cars abreast for a second, but no, because they're coming up to lap another car. And look, Baker, by making his move just when he did, forced Bodine and Earnhardt both to have to back off for a split second. That is a wily move by great veteran Buddy Baker. You know, I think if there's any weakness in the Baker situation, it's that he doesn't have a crew chief of the experience of some of the other teams. He really knows more about how to race these races than his crew does. And so Buddy at the wheel is having to make some of the critical strategic decisions himself. That's tough.
Baker starting in row 2 behind Yarborough and Elliott, who have been having their problems today and now showing some strength. Pulling away from Bodine and Earnhardt. And now Dale Earnhardt moving on by Jeff Bodine to claim second place again. Well, Sam, I said it earlier, but it's so true. No one's able to hold on to a position for very long up near the front of this pack.
An enduring myth in NASCAR racing is that these stock cars, as they are known, are the same Buicks and Fords and Chevys that you can buy in the showroom, just tuned up a bit. But in reality, these cars have chassis built specifically for racing and engines which are only the block itself is stock. The bodies resemble stock machines, if you don't count the spoilers and so forth, but just don't try to buy one of these things in the showroom because you can't do it.
More slow traffic being passed by Buddy Baker, moving by a jetliner on the runway of the airport down the back straight. Dale Earnhardt at one time trailing by 6 car lengths, and now a spin. A spin, Rick Wilson in car number 4, quickly able to hold it and prevent serious damage. So the yellow flag out again under threatening skies. Now we're thinking about rain, and that could be a problem. We will complete our coverage of the Firecracker 400 a little bit later. But right now, let's go to Marty LaCour at Bislett Stadium in Oslo for the Dream Mile. Daytona continues. We had the threat of rain earlier, and the rain did come. But now with some yellow caution flags and a couple of green pit stops by Jeff Bodine and Dale Earnhardt earlier involved in the lead, things have changed dramatically. Sterling Marlin in car number 1 is the leader. Behind him right now there, car number 22, Bobby Allison, like Buddy Baker, in his 22nd consecutive start in the Firecracker 400. After Allison, it is Cale Yarborough putting on a tremendous charge. Buddy Baker at 88 in 4th. There's Yarborough. There's Baker. And right behind Baker is car number 25, Tim Richmond. We have what almost amounts to a senior citizen sandwich. Marlin is 29, Richmond is 31. The 3 cars between them, Allison at 49, Yarborough at 46, and Baker at 45.
And Marlin at this point last year, there comes Bobby Allison trying him on the inside. Marlin didn't even have a full-time job at this stage in the season last year. He was selling real estate. They are side by side, even though there's enough air between them to drive a couple of cars through. Now, of course, they are door handle to door handle in that east banking with Bobby Allison edging ahead. Al, you painted a very accurate picture, I think, of the youth versus experience that we're seeing in the battle here for the lead. Bobby Allison, obviously, the experienced one. Sterling Marlin, the youthful one. what does it really mean at this stage of the race? Maybe not so much where they're just exchanging position here. Where it will really start to count as we get toward the last stages of the race. That's when you need the experience.
You know, the older drivers are waiting longer and longer for victories. Bobby Allison didn't win for 2 years until a recent win at Talladega. We know that Richard Petty's been waiting. We know that Cale Yarborough's been waiting. We know that Buddy Baker's been waiting. And there goes Sterling Marlin, putting his car number 1 back in the front position over Bobby Allison. Yarborough still remaining in third, Baker in fourth.